Nadirah Simmons, author of First Things First, Hip Hop Ladies Who Changed the Game. What up, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Let me back this camera up. I am so close.
We all up in here. I got all kinds of things. It'd be like we don't want that.
That was perfect.
Thank you. But good to see you, my friend. I'm glad, my friend. We're friends now. I've met you, just now. But I'm so glad you came down and spent some time with me. I know you're very busy. This book is about to come out tomorrow. So also a birthday. This book is an Aquarius. I love it.
Yes. Are you an Aquarius?
I am. My birthday is Wednesday, 31st.
I love that. Oh, yeah. Happy almost birthday.
Thank you. We're getting there. So listen, like I said, thank you for your time. I was looking forward to meeting you and to talking to you about this. Let's start at the end and then we'll backtrack a little bit. Okay. Let's just cut right to it. This book is about to come out. It's an Aquarius. It's about to be born officially. Tell me about First Things First, the log line, what you tell people about this book.
This is a book for anyone who wants to learn more about women in hip hop and be inspired to stretch the limits of what they can do within this space.
As women in hip hop did.
Yes.
Throughout the history of hip hop. Very dope.
Yeah.
First of all, why did you write this book? Like, what were you doing before this? We'll talk about the gumbo. I know all about it, but I want to see, like, where did you, get the inspiration to do this particular project? Some of us who have been writing books for a very long time are very jealous and don't like you. But I'm just saying hypothetically. But congratulations on completing the journey.
Thank you.
What inspired you to put this book together?
Well, I have the gumbo, as you mentioned, and I'm a really big fan of archiving and tracking history. I'm also a nerd. I'm a hip hop head, clearly from writing this book. And, I'm always thinking of all of the ways that hip hop has really touched and impacted practically everything, if not everything. Right. And when it comes to me starting the gumbo and wanting to highlight all of these different women within hip hop, in particular, the opportunity to write a book when it came, it just made perfect sense because for me, it was another medium through which I can kind of show people and through which they can learn. I'm a big fan of let's have some audio of something. Let's have a podcast. Let's have a doc. Let's have a TV. Let's have a book. Let's have any and everything that we can so everyone has access to the information.
Yeah, that's super dope. Now tell us about, we mentioned it. What's the gumbo about? How long has that been around? And what's the vibe of that?
Yeah, so I founded the gumbo in 2018. I saved up all of my checks. I was working at the Lit Show at the time. I saved up my checks for a year because I really wanted to create a space for women to write about hip hop. And particularly, I was seeing women who look like me, people I went to college with, like not getting the opportunities to write about hip hop, which I'm like, we're some of the creators. Like, it's not really making sense that we can't write about this thing that, we had a hand in creating. So I knew I wanted to not only give women the opportunities to write about women in hip hop, but also particularly give them the opportunity to get paid. Because that was the other thing I was seeing is people were doing a lot of free journalism, a lot of free work. And I'm not into that. Like, I'm not into the free, like, I don't think that's cool by any means. So yeah, so this is what we got with. And I've just been very just honored to get to highlight so many different women and particularly Black women and give them, some of them their first writing credit, some of them the first time they got paid to write about someone, and also the opportunity to write about the most mundane things. Like, people are writing about mask in hip hop and the different women who are wearing masks and Doom and how there are all those connections. Somebody writing a piece on Mia X and her seeing it and being like, this is amazing. This made my day. So just a bunch of stuff like that has really been like a joy to see. And the gumbo, for me, the name, I'm not from the South, I'm from South Jersey, but knowing that gumbo is something where a whole bunch of good things come together to make something really, really good, that to me is really what hip hop is. It's so many elements. So that's how the name came to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm from New York area, of course, in New York, New Jersey, where we always talk about the melting pot, like, the coming together of everything. The gumbo is like that, and hip hop being that, as some might say, a remix culture. It's all the parts being greater than the sum of the parts. The whole being greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
So back to the book. I enjoyed the book because I read a lot of it, and what I enjoyed about it was it's informal, right? It's not an academic, research driven. It's very informal. It's very like from my heart, from my soul, how I feel about these women. What I also loved, because even what you're saying now, to have the gumbo, to have a platform that's woman focused, Black women specifically, hip hop, angled. That's niche, right? It's not. I'm not saying I'm going to write about everything and give everything everything.
Right.
My show's like that. It's Hip Hop Can Save America. We talk about the intersections of hip hop and education or mental health, therapy, or just these areas that. But it's still kind of niche. It's not like we're going to talk about everything. What I liked about that is there's still so many stories that could be told, even in that niche. And what I really appreciate about what you wrote about is the number of. Nothing wrong with writing about the artists and the icons, but the people like Angie Martinez, or the folks who were not the artists, not on stage, but no less important, to the advancement of hip hop. Yep. Not just women in hip hop, but hip hop in general.
As a whole, yes.
Yeah. How was the focus on including some of April Walker or people who are definitely as hip hop, as part of the advancement of the culture and the movement as anyone else, as much as the artist? How much was that? Why was that focus so important?
As someone who obviously love the music so much, and this is not to say that it's just the music, but hip hop is more than just the music. And the way that I was raised, my dad, he owned a hip hop clothing store in South Jersey when I was growing up. Like my uncle, he used to DJ. He knows a lot of like the Philly rappers from like the 90s and 80s. So having all of those elements, and then like my uncle owning a barbershop, being in there and hearing them argue and dialogue. And then my mom doing my hair on Sundays and watching Queen Latifah on Living Single. Like that was our like hair show. So knowing that all of those things not only exist, but are super important and have paved the way for a lot of what we see. Like when I think about a Queen Latifah and when I think about a Will Smith and their ability to really stretch the limits of what people thought hip hop can do. And not because, hey, if you do this thing, then you have to leave this behind, but letting people know I can do all the things and I can still operate within this space. And I think a lot of times when people say hip hop, they think about just the music. And it really irks me because I'm like, yo, when you see a Pharrell,
we talk about this all the time here. So every time someone says it, I'm like, yes, yeah.
It kills me because you'll see Pharrell just did a Louis Vuitton line, and to know that the legacy and the means through which he's able to exist in that space and create fashions, however someone might feel about luxury fashion or not, that is a product of a Dapper Dan and of an April Walker. When you think about April, I talked to her for the book, and she said so many of the male rappers that were starting clothing lines or people that were trying to get their clothing lines off the ground, they were calling her for help. Some that became even bigger than they would have imagined. So when I think about stuff like that, I'm just like, yo, there's no way. A Honey magazine, the foundation laid by Honey magazine. That was inspiration for the gumbo. And I was reading, that was way beyond, I was like 4 when that first came out. And those were still influential enough for me to a point where I felt like, okay, we gotta show people these connections, because if we don't, somebody can, during hip hop 51, 52, 53 or whatever, we can get to a point where someone else is being attributed as the person who started this. And that's why I wanted to do the first, not to say, oh, it's a ranking, oh, this is the important person and the second, third, and fourth aren't, because I said that in the book. The 10th person is just as important as the first. But I want people to be able to trace a line back to somebody and say, oh, this is what they did, especially because we've lost so many hip hop pioneers. And so many of them are also still here. And I need us to really acknowledge what they have done, because it's important.
Yeah. I mean, starting it with Cindy Campbell, of course, just right there sets the tone for that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and it's interesting that you did talk to some of the, folks that you actually interviewed or pulled from their direct, the memoirs or whatever. It's interesting. There's a part in your book where you say, I'm really happy you made it this far. And maybe you jumped around, right? And then you say, if you jumped around, we want to know, like, what was the first one you started with and why, right? Which is interesting. And that's interesting because different people are going to have different entry points, right? You're going to say, oh, Missy Elliott was as she was like yours, like your entry, not your entry point to the culture, but sort of like
Yeah.
the icon of icons for you, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I started with Angie Martinez.
Yeah, so many people, a lot of people that have read it already. Angie, Missy,
right?
Kim, which Kim was my favorite. That's
of
my
course.
other goat. My fave. Also, the hardest chapter to write, surprisingly. Was
how can you say? How can you say it all in a chapter, right?
I was like, I don't know how to say anything else that hasn't been said, but that's why I did that text message. It worked out.
Yeah. I like the aside. There's good stuff in the book. There's also, it's not just writing. You have little, I don't know, vignettes of information or just, playful stuff that's in there. That's fun. And that's exciting. Now let's think like holistically overall, I'm sure you've gotten in these conversations. We all get in these conversations about women in hip hop, whether it's their, lyrical prowess or their extreme sexuality. And there's a lot of, problems with this, not problems. There's a lot of folks who have differing opinions on those things. Can you just speak to, again, holistically, overall, when people come at women in hip hop as being overly sexual, either they say that to me, there's often two sides to that as well. The industry's making them do that, and that's how, sex sells, and et cetera, et cetera. But then the other side that says, well, no, it's empowering, and women do this stuff because they feel like it empowers their sexuality, and men do it all the time, so why can't they, et cetera, et cetera. What's your take on that overall ongoing and endless debate?
Yes, definitely. Also, I want to shout out Ada for saying Lady B, because in my book, I say that was the voice I heard the most after my parents. As a South Jersey kid, we Philadelphia radio, Philadelphia suburbs. So that was the one. So shout out to her. To that point, I think whenever people get into those conversations, they're like, rappers are doing this, rappers are doing that. I always bring up like Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith, like a lot of the blues women who are very wildly explicit, and they're just out there on their tracks. So
and you had Millie Jackson in the book, like specifically for I get it. Yep.
Yeah. So and that's why I really threw her in there, more stories like that in there, because I think people have this kind of warped sense, or they just don't know that this isn't the first time someone's been sexual, and it won't be the last time. I definitely think when it comes to kind of that conflicting thing of, hey, are they being forced to do this, or hey, are they allowed to? It's really difficult to know. But the one thing that I do hope is that women are given the freedom to do what they want on their terms. And I think even in the past, like, couple of months, you're seeing the releases. It really, you see a Megan Thee Stallion who's independent. Yeah, she has, her different management deals with, different labels, but getting to operate on her own terms and make the music that she wants. So I want the women to create the music that they want. And if people don't like it, if it's too sexual for them, then it's just not the music for you. And that's fine. But people say it all the time. The men get to do a lot of nutty things, and everybody just lets it rock. So I'm never here for that. I'm like, all right, y'all, you got it.
Yeah, I get it. Do you think that it's so then again, overall, looking at the history of, you chronicled sort of the history and the ongoing connection to women in hip hop, always been looked at as, you get this, hip hop gets, I think, this is me talking, sort of a little bit of a negative, bad rap for being like overly misogynistic. Now, it's misogynistic, no doubt. I'm not saying that it's not, but society is misogynistic. So I think it just relates to that. I don't think hip hop is any more misogynistic than, church. But anyway, I'm just saying. So I don't want to get in trouble. You know what I mean? But there's other institutions, there's other, there's very patriarchal, cultural cultures that would be looked at as misogynistic. Yeah. So overall, do you think that the new era of being able to be independent, being able to release things independently now through the internet, through, Instagram and, social media, we have direct connections to your fans. Is that better or worse for women in hip hop? You see that it's still hard for Cyrock and Rhapsody to get the radio play and everything, and Megan Thee Stallion and the Sexy Reds and the Glorillaz. They're the ones that are at the forefront, and they are the overly sexualized kind of imagery, even if it's them putting it out on their, on their own accord. Yeah. But that doesn't say that those other women artists can't still become wildly successful in their own way. Right. So the scenery, what does the scenery look like in 2024 as opposed to 10 years ago, for example, to you?
I definitely think the scenery now, and 10 years ago I was 19. So
Yeah.
I'm comparing it to kind of, I don't want to say there was just one woman, but I think we know that at that time it really was, you kind of have
There can
this
only be
leader.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing now. The other thing that I think about a lot when we think about the landscape, everybody's sales are kind of in a weird space. No
Mhm.
matter who you are, I think people can have a really big hit,
Right.
and then a really low performing EP or a low performing album. And I think that's reflective of streaming and what people are doing. Are people buying full albums? Are people streaming part of a song? So I think
Right.
when we think about who's getting consumed, I think that's a big thing that isn't talked about enough, is how much people just aren't purchasing music and
Right.
consuming music in the same way. I do think that there is a space for everyone, and the one thing that I think we should do, and we had an interview on the site just go up recently with Kirsten Daniel. She's a music marketing manager based out of Atlanta. And one of the things she said that really resonated with me, I didn't do the interview. Shout out to Jessica, she did the interview.
Yeah.
Is to support those people. And I know it's easier said than done, but when you find an artist that you like, share them with your network, share them with your friends, repost their stuff when they're doing those concerts, whether it's a concert for 100 or a concert for 1,000, making
Right.
sure you're showing up and bringing people with you, because a lot of people are really eating off of, the smaller shows and their own
Right.
merch that they're putting out. So I think that's the thing, is just making sure we're being supportive. And if you're seeing something that doesn't really resonate with you, all right, that's not for you, but making sure that you're sticking to what it is that you like, and maybe, setting the tone for, hey, I want to see more of something like this, so
Right.
that you can actually get that. Because there are so many, even more women. And again, when I was 19, there were a lot, but there was still this idea of there can only really be one, and then
One.
everybody else can kind of operate here. And now you have so many women, which I think is amazing. But even in researching this book and thinking about it, I want people to be able to eat off of their
Right.
art. Like, this is their job. I think sometimes
Right.
people think like music is this fun little hobby.
Right.
And I don't think people really process like this is work for them the same way
Right.
that everyone else goes to work. And I just want people to be able to eat. And I want us to figure out whether it's on the consumer, which I don't think it should be, but the labels or whoever the teams are, to make sure that the money is getting into the pockets of these people and making sure they have the best teams behind them, so that when they're done, or they decide they don't want to perform anymore, or if they decide they want to take a break, they're still able to survive and thrive.
Yeah, I get it. No, very well said. Back to the book. I know we're jumping back and forth a little bit.
No, you're good.
But when being a fan, being from, New York and knowing a lot of these folks on the come up, or hearing about them or reading about them, I guess, were there any, really, you say, fun facts or unknown facts or things that really jumped out as I knew this artist, I knew this woman, I knew this executive, I knew this, writer, but I didn't know that they did this, or, and you tell these stories all throughout the book, but one or two that kind of really stuck out to you, that really said to you, man, I'm glad I'm writing this book, because this is dope info to get out that most people might not know about. Give me a couple of those.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things was finding out that, one, just how everything went down with Honey Magazine, from the creation of it to people not believing in it, to them getting it out there, to then people buying it that they originally pitched it to them being pushed out. And I know this story has been told over and over, but to hear it directly from the women themselves was very like, I'm glad I'm getting to talk to them and ask them these stories. And also hearing that the day that they got that first issue, that preview issue with Lauren on the cover, they were at A Great Day in Hip Hop shoot, which to me was like, that's just such a that just feels like everything coming together. So that was really cool to just to hear from them, and just to hear their pride and, their joy. I think another thing is writing about Dee Barnes, which I know a lot about Dee Barnes. I got to do an interview with her last week about the book too. Amazing. Shout out to her. But just getting to delve more into who she was as a whole, and all that she's contributed, and to think about Pump It Up and all of the artists she interviewed, to think about her music career, to think about her being a part of a group that was nominated for a Grammy within this, bigger entity when they did like a compilation song. So I'm just thinking about all of these things, and I'm just like, yo, like, that is amazing. And I already knew she was important. I love Miss D, but that really reading that stuff really made me feel like, wow, like I'm glad to add these parts of her story to her story. And then there's one more. I know you said two, three, but
no, give me more. First, I was gonna say about Dee Barnes. What's great is that she gets whittled down to, you know, the Dre thing, right? And that's important. And it's important that story gets told, and that, you know, we hold folks, at least in our minds, accountable for whatever.
Absolutely.
But it also then it whittles down her legacy to that confrontation. And like you say, there's so much more to it that I'm glad you expound on. So please, as we say, that's a great, you know, that's a great additive. So then the third one, you said a third one you had.
Yes. The third one was learning about Courtney Sloan. She is an interior designer, furniture designer. She went to Rutgers like me, like Jersey girl through and through.
Shouts to Rutgers. Shouts to all you.
Yes. And just finding out that she made like furniture for Queen Latifah and her mom when they got their first crib. And like Queen Latifah was like, I want wheels on the bottom of my stuff so I can wheel it to all different rooms. And knowing that she did like the Vibe office and she did Dame Dash's office, like she was doing all of these offices for so many different people and really setting up their spaces. And I think that's the other thing that was so great about the book was, again, like, yes, I'm gonna highlight the music, but even when you look at the cover of the book, when you look at that book jacket, you might look inside of that TV and be like, wait, Heather B in this TV, like who, you know, who,
right.
who is, or you might not even know it. I'm just like that. Those are the things I want people
there you
to,
go. Yeah.
Yes. Those are the things I want people to really look at and say, wow, like I learned something new. But the Courtney Sloan thing, I was just like, this is not, I don't even think about furniture when I think about hip hop, but now I do. Now I'm
of
like,
course.
who's the go-to guy for Hove when he wants his house, you know, done? Like I'm so intrigued by that now. So yeah, that was a really cool thing to learn.
It's these intersections, we talk about, Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys bringing all their artwork to the Brooklyn Museum. And so you don't think about art, like fine art, when you think of hip hop, but now we know that you can and should, because why not? Like you said, hip hop is in everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so women's contributions, it's funny because you hear both sides of it throughout the again, these conversations, these debates, these ongoing and endless debates, that women either weren't involved enough, and they weren't, or haven't been given the credit they deserve, and they weren't. So you're able to highlight a lot of the ways that, you know, that women actually made not just contributions to like their own artistry, but again, to the culture as a whole, something to expand. So I use Angie as that kind of, and again, Daniel Smith, you know what I mean? Like, you know, these that took it to these places that helped expand the reach of hip hop. How important and why were maybe women, you know, really good at that?
I think the one thing that I've always been told, and I remember this line in Scandal, you got to work twice as hard.
Okay.
And that working twice as hard manifests often in such great work and such life-changing work and such influential and impactful work. And I know so many women, even in reading this book, when I think about Missy, like doing a song and writing a verse for the Raven Simone video, and then like finding out after the fact that they replaced her with someone who was skinnier and fairer skin, like learning about those things and knowing that Missy was like, oh, I might be done with this industry. And then her, I mean, I would have been done. And her feeling like, dang, I'm going to come back and feeling inspired to go harder than she had already been. I just think that, you know, so many women, we just know in every space, even if we are the best has to be twice as good for us to do what we're doing. And all of these women in this book, they all are such hard workers and they are so impactful and so important. I think that's why their legacies really just hold up in the way that they do, because they all were aware of that. Yeah, you got to work twice as hard.
Yeah, no, I get it. I respect it. I understand 100%. Who'd you have to leave out that you wanted to have in?
Oh my gosh. I love West Coast rap. I know South Jersey. I'm very big. I love Philly rap and I love West Coast rap. Like those are my two favorites. And I really wanted to do something on Yo-Yo. I really wanted to do something on Sugar T. I really wanted to do something on Mia X. There are so many women, which I said, yo, support this. We can get another one.
That's right.
But I wanted to make them make sense. And I feel like, as I say in the book, and I've said, you know, to so many people. These legacies are so important. And I didn't want to just write about someone for the sake of, hey, I added them in there.
Right.
And
An encyclopedia of women
yes,
in hip hop. Yeah.
yes. And because the book has such a specific theme of first, and you see some are very figurative and some are like very factual. You can go on the Billboard site, you can find whatever. But the ones that I was coming up with for them, they just weren't strong enough. And for me, I didn't want to write about 10 women who were the first ladies of like, yeah, it falls in line with the theme of first, but how interesting is like, it's not, I really wanted to hone in more on their impact. And I think that those are the three like that stick out in the top of my mind. And, Mia is mentioned in the book, like there are sections where people are mentioned that might not have full chapters, but for me, I know that the next time around, those are three women who are like top of mind for me to really sit down, and whether I need to watch the hurricane video 20 times to figure out what to do for Sugar T, like I will, but I want to give them the proper, thorough chapters that they deserve. And every time I wrote them, they just weren't, I was like, they're just not strong. I had a whole chapter on battle rap that I really want to keep in. I used to watch Queen of the Ring every night when I was in college. I love Bab. Shout out to her. And it felt like, again, an encyclopedia to the point where it was 20 pages of facts. And I was like, this isn't fun, yo. Like,
I got you. You got to go where the spirit moves you. I know how it goes. Yeah. Right. It is the volume 2, second thing second. It wouldn't be the title. That'd be a terrible title.
I was kind of thinking about that.
maybe. I mean, listen, if you're listening on the audio feed, by the way, you're missing all the fun. We got some people in the chat, in the comments section. Again, shouts to Miss Thursday, who was bigging up your Sugar T reference. 100%. So we're here. So if you're listening on the audio feed, this is, again, author Nadirah Simmons, who is brought out the great book, First Things First, with Hip Hop Ladies Who Changed the Game. We are, of course, on YouTube streaming live Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern, hiphopcasaveamerica.com/watch if you're listening and not watching. And we're too good looking. You can't be, why are you missing out on this? Everyone on this show is good looking and fabulous. And why are you missing out on the video aspect of it? Get it together, people. Yes. But that being said, so let's a couple of things before I let you go, if you don't mind. Yeah. So you've told me who we had to kind of leave out, the book, and I get it. It's, there's only so much you could write, there's only so much you could put in.
I wrote 20,000 more words than I was supposed to. So
that's all right. It's the author, they say you gotta, it's a terrible phrase, but you gotta kill your babies sometimes. You have to, oh my God. They say that. It's a terrible thing. Like you want to put it all in, you want to leave everything in, but sometimes you gotta chop it down. That being said, you're still active in the journalism world. You've got the gumbo going. Yeah. What's the again, to remind people again about that platform and what it's bringing to the world, especially in a time of journalism upheaval. We already had a drought of good either hip hop related journalism. That'll get me in trouble, but it is what it is. Women related journalism or women written journalism. You're kind of black focused journalism. All these things are even being hit harder by the recent onslaught of journalism closures and such. Yeah. So of course, something like the gumbo is, I guess, even more important than ever. What are the plans for it? What is it, trying to do? And why should people keep it in mind when they want to go to a place where they can get that kind of info?
Yeah, the plans for the gumbo, I mean, first and foremost, I want it to remain an archive. So if there's a woman you don't know about, I want someone to be able to say, oh, let me go to the gumbo and read and learn about this person. Nice. I want it to remain a place where people can get paid, but we will never be doing anything for free. That is not the bag. If we don't have the money to pay, then guess what? Yeah. Take a little break. Like that's always my thing. I'm not in the business of doing unpaid, especially journalism is such hard work. I also want to expand just because, I worked in late night, I worked in TV, and I love TV so much. Like that's like truly like hip hop and TV are like my first loves for real. And I want to expand into different mediums. I would love to see a First Things First documentary produced by the gumbo. And I think that there's so much more. There's just so much more to be done, and there are so many more stories to be told. In the gumbo, every month we do different themes. So 1 month the theme might be fashion, 1 month the theme might be a specific region, 1 month the theme might be acceptance. So I try to tailor things so that we're not I don't need somebody to write about the latest song that dropped. You could just go listen to it.
Right.
Like,
I said it all the time. We don't even need reviews anymore. Just go listen to it and you think what you think about it.
I like reviews. I like when people have sat down. I like when they're, when my journalists sit down and they've
Sure. But a one take, quick take.
Yeah, I don't need the random, single on a Friday. Can you go write an article that so-and-so dropped a single on Friday? Like, I just feel like those things, I don't need that. I want my hard-hitting reviews and critiques and analysis and history and all of that. So that's what the Gumbo is and will continue to be.
Yeah, that's dope. Very cool. What's been
the comments are so nice.
Yeah, I know.
Thank
Great.
you.
Oh yes. Once again, this is Chosen Hip Hop. Glad to hear more people having a discussion on women in hip hop. I think I'll read the rest of the comment. We're working with the So Deaf initiative with the Hip Hop Education Center and have a page on our site dedicated to the queens with wiki links and spreading that information. That's dope. Chosen, put that link in the comments. We don't mind sharing links. You can do that. Now I lost my thought, of course. Let me go look at this comment because it'll spark me. So more people having the discussion of women in hip hop. Mm-hmm. How was, in your opinion,
I know.
How were the Hip Hop 50, celebrations and jubilations and salutations and all the things that happened? How was the focus on women in hip hop? Of course, we don't know everything that happened around the world in the country, but the big ones we know about. What were you saying? Were you?
Yeah.
What was the reaction?
I mean, the Netflix doc on Ladies First, not just because I was in it. I thought that was a great doc. It was produced very, very well. And I think
Sarita Gates was involved with that, right?
Yes, we love Sarita. That's the homie. She has a shout out at the end of the book. That is my dog.
She's
shout
the
out
homie.
To her. Sarita knows everyone. I'm going to text her after this.
I know her through Summer McCoy, who did a lot of hip hop archiving work. They were working in hip hop with Martha Diaz. But Sarita's the Gates Preserve, right? Yeah. We know about Sarita's work.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yep.
Yes. I think that there were so many great things, and even when I think about a platform like the Gumbo and how there are so many people that don't know that we exist, I can only imagine the amount of work that was done that I might have even missed. To that point, I would have loved to see more. And I'm always a big fan of paying the pioneers and the OGs. Like, that is my thing. Like, I don't like seeing anyone do GoFundMe's for health related issues like that. That stuff really, it sends me to a different level of anger. And when I think about, people, I love seeing MCWD post all of her flyers. I'm just like, this is a story. And she did so much Hip Hop 50 stuff, but that's why in the book, I'm like, I want a biopic on her that she produces, cut the check so she can do it, because I just feel like there's so much more. And people knew. The one thing I will say is that for as much time as everyone had, knowing that Hip Hop 50 was coming, I think that was the thing where I was like, dang, like I felt like there would still be so much more. And when it comes to women, I mean, there's a reason the Gumbo exists. We're operating within patriarchy. So, we got what we got, and what we got was amazing. But I definitely left feeling like, I wish that there was more. But I've been saying this to everyone. That doesn't mean we can't do a Hip Hop 51, Hip Hop 52, Hip Hop 53. Like there's so much opportunity for us to celebrate these women and talk to them. They're all around. Like they're all on Instagram. Like they are here, and I really want us to really highlight them. And that's the reason I put the Roxanne doc in the book. That was the first time a lot of people really heard about her. And however people might have felt, whether they liked the movie, I loved it. I wanted more after it. I know it stopped right before her first album, but I want more things, and I want it to be within the realm of what these women want for themselves as well. But I just want more stuff. And I feel like there's always going to be room for more, especially with women, because women, they don't get as much as everybody else.
Right. But as you said, like, because of the work twice as hard, but also as it's super inspiring. It's super innovative. When you have to, just like hip hop, one of the greatest things about hip hop is that you had to, it was something out of nothing. You had to come in through the back door. They didn't want you coming through the front. It's all that brilliance of bucking the system and doing all the things. Well, so like you say, women had to do that within the system that was built to go against the system. Like, where do you get more innovation and brilliance than women, working the game as well as they did, which you've outlined so well in the book. Once again, Nadirah Simmons is First Things First, hip hop ladies who changed the game. And before you go, I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Well, maybe 3, but we'll make them quick and let's get late. When this was a historical look, and I think that what Hip Hop 50 did a lot, even with the documentaries that we talked about, that we saw, a lot of it was past. And I always like to make sure, and I'm sure you do too, because we're in the same lane, I think, to make sure that people understand that all of this is not done. It's ongoing. There's still new things happening. It's not all history. It's progressive moving forward. When you look at women in hip hop, what are the things that you see today? And we touched upon this a little bit.
Yeah.
But what do you see today that lets you know that innovation in and through and with and attached to hip hop by women is still, if not as good as ever, maybe even better than ever?
Yeah, I mean, I say this to everyone all the time. I feel like the women have been the most exciting for me in hip hop they're always very exciting, but particularly in the past 2-3 years, I'm just like, they're just out of here. From the videos to the fashion to the performances, you're getting choreo, even though Offset had a little choreo at the BET Awards, but you're just getting so much. And that also doesn't mean every woman has to go put on a one-piece unitard and do choreo. I want everyone to operate within their space.
Right.
I just love seeing people really get to, again, kind of stretch those limits. And when I'm seeing women today, if I think about a Missy like making car and spaceship noises on a track, I also think about so many other people who kind of get to like just stretch those limits. I love seeing Meg. I love seeing Cardi. Like I love seeing the newer generation of women just really just go ham.
Yeah. Just and branching out into different areas, and whether they're doing movies or whatever, like that, kind of writing books, whatever. Do all kind of stuff. Why not?
That's the thing. Like I love it, and I'm just like, the foundation has been set by all these people, but history is happening now. Like Megan Thee Stallion performing at the Oscars, like however we feel about Oscars and awards, like that's crazy.
Right. And you know what? There's a time when it shouldn't be firsts anymore, as we know. And as women have had to do forever, as Black women especially have had to do forever. To say that like it's this year and we're the first to be a thing is great, but it'd be great when there's no more firsts.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be the last book in this series. No more firsts. I love that.
So listen, one more question. I don't want to get into it. I don't even want to get into it.
I already know what you're about to ask me.
What are your thoughts on when you see this kind of current, back and forth that's happening? That's, whatever.
With me.
What are you thinking right now about all this stuff?
I've said this to many people before, and I'll say it again. I hate social media so much sometimes because it involves stands and fans and outside voices and fake graphics and mock-ups and fake text conversations and
bots.
This person's team and bot. It's so much like I remove all of that. I want, and I've said this to so many people before, the men get to beef. A lot of people don't like beef. I remember listening to old Queen Latifah diss records to Foxy Brown, which people forget about. I'm like, that was a thing. Women should be allowed to beef. Yeah, we're allowed to have feelings and emotions. If we don't like somebody, I think that we're well within our right. What I don't like is all of that outside noise. And sometimes just some of the digs, I feel like, okay. And I know people feel like in beef, things shouldn't be off limits.
Right. All's fair in rap and war.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like kind of what I was expecting, I'm like, oh, this is not going to be what I thought it was. But I love seeing the women stand up for themselves, but I don't like seeing kind of like the catty and let's involve everyone and let's make it a trend and let's try to have this person say this about this person. Like if you got a problem, just like, I mean, Meg came out, she had a problem and she released a track and it was, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But this extra outside noise and this extra stuff. And then again, people are going to like what they like in diss records. There might be something I think is offensive and I don't want to hear, but other people might disagree. But just keep it in the records. Like if you really got a real problem, like give me the record, go get back in the booth and like, hit us the next day, or if you want to wait till Monday or whatever time, like cool. But it's been very interesting to watch because it's just very, I never imagined that I would see the internet play such a role in and not even play such a role, be like a third character in beef. Like I feel like it's the two people who are beefing, and then there's fans and stands, and I'm just like, we don't need this.
And it's funny, you go back to like the Ether and, you know, Super Ugly, you know, the other big thing was like, we all had our thoughts and our opinions, but we couldn't like participate or influence or be in the mix because we were outsiders. We're just listening to the radio and waiting for the next thing to drop. But now there's, like you said, a lot of people able to exert their influence or their, you know, and that does muddy it up a little bit.
Yeah, it might, and it gets just real. Like, what are we like? Really, like this? And is this true? Like, you retweeted this tweet, and is that accurate? Like, it's just so much where I'm like, I want to hear records. Let the women, if they don't like each other, cool. Right. Like, you are allowed to not like somebody, but give me a good record.
Fair enough. Well, that's all. That's it. You gotta give me a good diss record. That's all we want. Yeah, that's it. Keep it to that. We're waiting for that, but all that other stuff is different. That
outside stuff.
Yeah, I got you. I hear you. All right. Well, listen. You know, it goes back to the idea that, you know, back in the days there could only be one, you know, top woman rapper at any given time, and now we could have 5, and that's fine. Yep. And if 2 of them want to go at each other, the other 3 can still eat and still make, you know, make stuff. And it doesn't have to, it's not so closed as it used to be. I guess at least we have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want some good bars. I love good bars. I'm like, give me some good, thought out, direct, planned, like, give me some good, that's what I like. I like good bars. So if everyone's going to beef, just good bars. I don't need no tweets.
There you go. I hear that. All right. Twitter fingers, right? You know, okay, let's go. Let's just get this barred out. I appreciate it. Nadirah, anything else that I haven't covered that you want to share about this book, about the gumbo, about your work, what's next? And then obviously where people can, you know, reach out, find it and purchase and support and do all the things. Tell me about it.
Well, what's next is a very long vacation because this is like almost 2 years worth of work. But you can buy the book wherever you like to get your books. I'm always a fan of supporting your local bookstore, your independent bookstore, because let's keep the indie bookstores in business, please.
I like bookshop.org, which, you know, you can buy.
Yep, they have all the indies on there. And thank you for having me. If you want to learn more about the gumbo or myself, the gumbo is the gumbo on social media. So it's TheGumbo. And I'm Hi Nadirah on Twitter and Instagram. I will slowly be removing myself from Twitter. I'm near the end of my time on there. I'm like, it's not even, I know it's X, but my time is up.
Yeah, I understand completely. But good, that's where people can go. And again, buy the book. First things first, Hip Hop Ladies Who Changed the Game, Volume 1. But for now, this is the one that's out there. And like I said, I really appreciated your personal approach to it. Thank you. Like carrying us through your discovery, right? Your discovery, not only when you were young and first discovered an artist, but as you went through and kind of dug and researched and archiving these stories. And these names is really super important. So I appreciate you. And again, thank you for your time. And I hope we get to talk again soon.
Yes, I'm about to go text Rita right now and be like, hey, I just talked to
Very cool. All right, that's it. And again, people love it. Love your energy, Nadirah. She says, this is Carla in the chat. Congrats on the book.
Thank you, Carla.
And we had some folks. So and shouts again to the replay gang who's watching this and didn't catch it live and didn't get to play along in the comments. Come join us live next Monday, 9 p.m. Nadirah, thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, be safe.
Bye.
All right, there you go. Once again, Nadirah Simmons, author of, I have it right here, First Things First, Hip Hop Ladies Who Changed the Game. Get it where you get books.
Manny Faces. You sick for this one. Sick for this one. Sick for this one. Sick.